welcome here to the Teaching Theater at the Alkek Library. And as a special little treat before we start the program officially, please welcome Texas State University's very own Mariachi Nueva Generación. Mariachi Nueva Generación. This is an award-winning group, contest winners. And I want to thank Dr. Cirilo Campos for helping us put this together. I'm going to turn this part of the show to the pros. Musicians, do your thing.
Que lo veo pasar, mi corazón se enloquece y me empieza a palpitar. Se emociona, ya no razona, no lo puedo controlar. Se emociona, ya no razona y me empieza a cantar. Me canta así, así. Biri biri bam bam, a biri biri bam bam, a biri 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 bam bam, a biri 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 bam bam. Cada vez que lo oigo hablar, me tiemblan hasta las piernas y el corazón igual, y se emociona, ya no razona, no lo puedo controlar, y se emociona, ya no razona y me empieza a cantar. Me canta así, así, biri biri bam bam, a biri biri bam bam, a biri 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 bam bam. Hey yeah, hey hey yeah, take it away, Cuare. Qué bonito, qué bonito. Hey, yeah. Hey, hey, yeah. Mi corazón se enloquece y me empieza a palpitar. Me tiemblan hasta las piernas y el corazón igual. A biri 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 bamba, biri bamba.
That's good. Beautiful.
Goodness. Oh, let's hear it, folks, for the award-winning Mariachi Nueva Generación. Amazing, amazing guys, amazing. They're from right here at Texas State University, award-winning mariachis, and you can't do a Selena program without having some music, right? You got to have that. And it kind of, now all these years later, it just shows that her music and her memory live on. Before we start, let me just give a few acknowledgments and thank yous. I want to do a special thank you to Professors Barry Underhill, Kevin Jenkins, and Cirilo Campos for getting their fashion, art, and music students involved. Very important for us, and we encourage that. I'd also like to thank our own Whitliff student workers because they really do keep the Whitliff collections going, and especially Alex Tarasido Templeton. It's her artful graphic design work that did the label for Martin's case in the gallery, if you've seen it. And I'd also like to acknowledge Lyda Goose, who also has a wonderful eye and helped create the title wall for that exhibit. Beautiful. That features the photo from Al Rondon. I'd also like to acknowledge some longtime friends and supporters of the Whitliff Collections who are in attendance. Author Joe Nick Patowski and photographer Al Rondon and his wife Elizabeth. And also, I should say, it is students and young people that inspired and were really the origin of the exhibit. Back in 2022, we had 2 or 3 images by Al Rondon in a case for Hispanic Heritage Month. And I noticed right away that young people, men and women, would linger at those photographs and images. We had some posters in there. And I was really struck by that, by the idea of young people born way after the movie. And, what are they connecting to? So I kind of got that idea, what is that effect, the Selena effect? And then the more I started thinking about it, really trying to understand what is going through the young person's eyes, is that it's totally legitimate to think of Selena solely in the present tense and into the future. In other words, what is she going to mean? Because all of her accomplishments, her Grammys, her appearances, they speak for themselves. They are there for the music historians. They are there for the public to enjoy forever. But her essence, that's going to carry through, and that doesn't happen with all artists. There's, we grieve and we celebrate great actors, musicians, physicists, all kinds of people, but we're not often talking about them or being inspired by them 30 years later. Not necessarily, and certainly not in the way that Selena seems to. It's definite that she had some kind of light to her in life. For me, the Selena effect is almost like, I would describe it as pure joy. There's no need for communication. I don't need to tell you, how great she was. You don't need to tell me why you're happy when you're looking at something that she touched, at something that she sang, something that she wore. It's a different kind of communication, and that is the Selena effect. Now, you're not here to listen to me talk. You're here to listen and learn from Martin Gomez, her great collaborator, friend, confidant, the man who brought her fashion dreams to life. And I should also acknowledge Martin and Rebecca, our parents of 2 beautiful young adults. We were just talking about that, I said I was 21 and 25 once, I remember that. So briefly, a quick bio on Martin. Martin Gomez has worked as a retail fashion executive for some of the largest conglomerates for more than 25 years. He is an expert in fashion design, product development, and global sourcing. He has worked all over the world and is an in-demand lecturer and fashion design mentor. Martin was born in San Antonio. He holds Bachelor's of Arts degrees from St. Mary's University and the University of the Incarnate Word in Public Justice and Fashion Design, Merchandising, and Business, respectively. As I mentioned, he and Rebecca are parents to 2 young adult children. One of them lives in Paris, the other in Florida.
Miami.
In Miami. So Martin is currently working on a book about his time with Selena. If For the last 5 years, he's revisited those memories, good and tough, right? And he's been working on that and getting encouragement from his good friend, Irish author and editor, Lindsay Spence. In January 2020, so more than 5 years ago, and we have it in display, he wrote in longhand pencil the historic diary account of his time with Selena. This is the origin of his book. These are the beginning notes. I feel, as I've read through them, that they were the basis, not only for the book, but maybe a bit of catharsis.
Oh, very much so.
Going through that. The diary is on display, and very much affirms the idea that when they were working together, they were creating one, if not the first, one of the very first celebrity brands. Now it's very commonplace. As you visit the exhibit, look at the materials, and delve into her story, you'll see that that's very true. So my first question. Oh, mariachis? Play us out. Yeah, you don't have to stand here the whole time. I'm sorry. I won't say it. Guys, let's have one more round of applause for the mariachis. Guys, I guess if you'll exit. I guess head out this way. Yeah, play us some music out. I never was going to do it.
Ese relajo, escóndete atrás de la gancha chiquita, que ahí viene bravo. Ay, méteme tu rebozo, mi vida, para capotearlo. Doro, doro, duro, doro relajo. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Texas State University. Thank you, guys. Amazing.
I love mariachi
Oh
music.
my God. Thank you so much. One more little ad lib, if you don't mind. Today, I saw some fashion design students give a PowerPoint presentation, 10 different students, on how they would accessorize, dress Selena today. It blew me away. They knocked it out of the park. And again, it's with that idea of what does she mean today. So I want to thank Professor Underhill for doing that. And it was just so amazing. And I guess that would be my first question, because we're going to be talking fashion first. What do you think that Selena would say to the college students who made such a stunning PowerPoint presentations? I told Martin about it as I was leaving the building. I said, you're not going to believe it. But what do you think Selena would think that now, 30 years later, that someone would take the time to do that?
You know, the first thing she would say, to be really honest with you, is the impossible is possible. She said that was our mantra, literally every day. So she was full of encouragement. I mean, she literally was the first person who saw me, who, other than my ex-wife, she was, and so this is new for us. So she says, remember, I'm your ex-wife. But dear, she's my closest friend in the world. And if it wasn't for her, I wouldn't be in this business. So, you know, Selena probably would say, wow. Because one thing that she was humble. Selena didn't know she was famous. She didn't figure that out until way later. And I didn't know she was famous, you know? And so I think she would say, wow. And she said that a lot. And she would probably encourage them because that's who she was. And she would do it individually. And I get that from her. So when I meet someone, it's always that person that I'm talking to. It's one person. Even though there could be a group of 20 people. And if you ever interact with me, it's always about the person that is in front of me. I owe that to them, and I got that from Selena, and she would do that.
Well, I mean, she is so enduring. I mean, I often think part of that appeal is that she looked like her audience looked like her. It was that connection to her cultura, and just that youthfulness. I mean, it's really irresistible. And then also I've been thinking a lot about it because I've been thinking about the relationship, the friendship, that bond that you all had within that music, history that she was making. But also, it's such an archetype of a story. You know, small town girl does good. I mean, it's just that's what it's a story that's, just eternal. So you met Selena at a Woolworth store, and why did she make such an impression on you, or what was going on?
And I'm going to read an excerpt to the book, and it's actually the first chapter that I wrote that I sent to my dear friend Joe Nipatons. I love you, man. This book would have never gotten done. The first person I called, and we met right down the road in Green. Remember that? And I said, I need to start writing this stuff down. And we started with that chapter. It's moved around now a little bit, but that chapter is now chapter 2. But yeah, I was an executive trainee. My dream since I was about 7 was to design for Dillard's department stores. It was so outlandish. I was a kid from the barrio. I grew up in a trailer, Section 8 housing, food stamps, first to go to college. So there wasn't much of a dream there. It was more kind of like just dreaming that something would happen. So the fact that I'm here now, I'm 61, and I look at everything I've done with kind of the beginning of it, come on, how fortunate. My beginning of my career was working with this incredible human.
Do you remember what she was wearing?
I do, and I do. And I don't want, because I want you to hear it, how it's going to be in the book. Because working with Joe Nick at the beginning of this process, it was always about closing my eyes and making sure that you, the reader, could visualize it. So I'll read that in a minute. But yeah, I do. I remember everything she wore. And if you know me, clothing is my religion. I love clothing. But when you think of a little boy, a Mexicano, not a Latino, I hate the word Latino because I'm a Mexican. And being a Mexican in the 1970s who liked to dress dolls, it wasn't an easy path. It wasn't an easy path. And I couldn't fight. But I had a sister who could. But so it wasn't easy. And I think back then, playing with dolls, wanting to sew, whatever, it was almost kind of like it was permission to get bullied and beat. So I recognize that when I see creatives. So yeah, I mean, I remember everything she wore. Like, I remember it visually. Yeah, I totally remember how she
Well, let's hear a little passage, but let's set it up just a little bit.
Okay.
Is it true you had no idea who she
No.
was? Okay. Is it true that this was about the summer of '93, September?
It was the summer. It was June of '93.
Okay. And
I literally had been in Corpus for 2 weeks.
okay. And you, even though you didn't know who she was, you thought she was somebody. You asked her for an autograph.
No, I didn't know. I just thought she was a beautiful girl who came into the Woolworth store. Okay. And I don't know if you have to, let me set the picture. So the Woolworth 5 and Dime, for those of us that are older than a lot of you in this room, Woolworth was a 5 and Dime, kind of like a dollar store. And attached to it was a cafe. And you could have malts, and you could have burgers, and and it was the only one. There was only a few left back in the early 1920s, 30s, and 40s. That's literally where Hollywood in Beverly Hills. That's where a lot of the movie stars were found. And in Corpus Christi at the mall, there was still one. And she walked in, and I was sitting with the person I was working with, the person who was training me, and she walked in, and I'm like, wow. Because come on, it was Corpus Christi. It's hot. It was 120 degrees. And this girl came in, and I was being coy. And I just walk. I don't know why I did it. I don't, my life is, I'm Forrest Gump. I'm not better, smarter than anybody. I have just been, like, I'm Forrest Gump. It just happened that I got up being coy with a napkin and I said, I hear you're famous. Dude, I knew, and I think I knew nothing about her. I knew zero. I didn't listen to Tejano. I listened to Depeche Mode and Blondie and The Cure. I didn't know anything of ding, nothing.
Shall we hear a little passage from the book? Yeah, let's. You got your glasses,
Yeah, I have
my friend?
glasses.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm 61. No work done yet. I'm thinking about it. Seriously, man. Okay, so it's going to be hard for me to get through this, but I'm going to get through it. All right. It's the first time I've read it out loud. I had been at my post for about 3.5 months and was getting comfortable with my duties as an executive training and had developed a mentorship relationship with one of the area sales managers who was training me in merchandising. She had been with the company for years and was a retail veteran. Roseanne would often invite me to take lunch. On this day, she invited me to lunch, stating she was going to treat me to the best burger place in town. We were going to an old-fashioned grill cafe in the Woolworth store. Woolworth was a throwback 1950s cafe with the lunch counter restaurant where you could order fountain drinks, malts, shakes, and the best home-style burger in town. This location was one of the last of its kind. The Cafe Grill, attached to the Woolworth Five and Dime store, was located in the Sunrise Mall, where Dillard's was the largest anchor store in the mall. We were sitting at a booth getting ready to order when in walked in a stunning young woman. She was radiant and fully made up. Her makeup was perfect, red lip and all. She totally caught my eye. I was completely taken aback by her appearance and her presence. This was Corpus Christi, Texas, in the heat of the summer of 1993. Most, if not all, people in this sleepy beach bay town in the Gulf of Mexico walked around in shorts, tees, flip-flops, but not fully made up to perfection. This girl was a vision. She walked into the Woolworth Cafeteria Grill from the Five and Dime store, so poised and beautiful, looking for something or someone. Her hair was pulled back, slick, in a high ponytail. Gold large hoop earrings adorned her ears, making her face and lip the focus of my attention. She wore a black bodysuit with a gold chain belt at her waist and the highest 6-inch heels, which made her look glamorous and movie star-like, something right out of MTV. She took my breath away. I was infatuated with fashion, and I had not ever seen someone like her in Corpus Christi, Texas. I remember gasping and looking directly at my friend and colleague, Roseanne, and sitting and said, "Wow, who's that?" Roseanne looked at the young woman, then looked at me and said, "That's Selena. She's famous." I don't know why I did it. I got up from the booth, took my napkin from the table, and approached her. "I hear you're famous," I asked her. Selena looked at me, smiled, and giggled. I proceeded to tell her that I did not know who she was, but could I have her autograph? Selena looked at me, then looked at my jacket lapel and asked, "You work at Dillard's?" Apparently, I had left my Dillard's name tag on and clearly stated Martin Gomez, EDB and Training, Dillard's Department Stores. I immediately advised Selena that I was an executive training. However, I really was a fashion designer. "You're a fashion designer?" Selena excitedly asked. "Yes. I have a degree in fashion design. I'm here in Corpus Christi to do my executive training with Dillard's, and I hope to someday design for them." Selena was so excited to hear that I was an actual fashion designer. She wanted to talk about fashion. She told me she loved to design herself. Here it comes, woof. And was planning to open up stores soon. She signed the napkin I handed to her and told me she loved talking to me. She wanted to talk to me more about fashion. Selena gave me a hug, shook my hand, and stayed and started to leave. As she was leaving, she turned, smiled, and said, I'm glad I met you. Call me." As I was walking away, heading back to the booth, I noticed she had written her phone number on the back of the napkin where she had given me her autograph with a heart and her signature stating, "Cuídate, take care of yourself" in Spanish. Roseanne was shocked at how long Selena and I spoke to one another. She asked, "What did you guys talk about?" "Fashion," I told her. She loves fashion. She's opening up stores. When I got home that evening, I told my wife, Rebecca, about meeting this famous girl named Selena. And she said, "Selena, the singer?" she asked. Apparently, she had heard about her. She advised me that Selena was very famous. She was a very famous Tejano singer who, in her opinion, was going to be the next Gloria Estefan or bigger. "They're calling her the Mexican Madonna," she said. I was dumbfounded. Where had I been? I had never heard from her. I had never heard of her. Who was this girl? It was way before the internet was created, so research was limited to say the least, and I was not interested in Tex-Mex Tejano music movement at all. My taste in music was MTV 80s and 90s rock, punk, and new wave. Blondie and Cure and Depeche Mode and New Order and R.E.M. was what I was listening to, not Tejano. Truth be told, I wasn't even proud of being Mexican, much less listening to Spanish music. That would all change upon meeting this incredible girl named Selena. Needless to say, I never called her after our first meeting. It was about a month later. I was on the store sales floor, merchandising product on a table when I hear my name over the store intercom. Martin Gomez to shoes, Martin Gomez to the women's shoe department. Instead of walking over to the other side of the store where the ladies' shoe department was located, I called the department extension. The person on the floor line said she had a customer asking to speak to me. I assumed that the customer had a complaint, so I proceeded to swiftly run over to the women's shoe department. Upon arriving at the ladies' shoe department, I was met with a crowd of people gathering around someone. I immediately thought an accident had occurred and became concerned. As I approached the crowd, I hear, "Why haven't you called me?" I was taken by surprise to see in the middle of the crowd signing autographs was no one other than Selena. Everyone looked at me. "Who's that?" I hear someone in the crowd asked. It's too early to cry. Selena looked at me, smiled, and said, "That's Martin Gomez. He's going to be my fashion designer." Then giggled.
Beautiful. Amazing. Let me ask you, Martin. I mean, I've had the privilege to look at your account, the handwritten account. What was she yearning for? I mean, sometimes it seems almost for a friend.
Well, I realized later that her group was very insular. It was her family, it was the Dinos, and then it was her fan base. Her friends were her family, and everybody was focused on one thing, was her music. And then in comes this guy, not Selena, in comes this guy, and he doesn't know, and I was very opinionated. I just, I didn't know who she was. I wasn't impressed by her. I was impressed by her appearance, but I didn't know her yet. And I think that sparked something in her because it was something outside of the music circle. And I was not gonna ask for an autograph. I didn't want one. I wasn't gonna call her back. Why? I wasn't going to, I was focused on getting my training done because I was going to be a designer for Dillard's. Dillard's did not have any designers. Back then, there were buyers. And my dream was to design for Dillard's. And no one and nothing was gonna get, you can ask my wife, I was so focused. Nobody was gonna get in the way of that. So why would I give this girl, she was a singer.
Right.
And I think when I came into the picture, it was kind of like, this guy's what I want to do. This guy's what I want to be. Selena used to say, music's my job, designing is my passion. That's what she wanted to do. I didn't know that. And at the time, Selena didn't know that you could sketch something and then make it. in the book, I'm going to go into I go into details about, she would sit and see me illustrate. I can illustrate really fast, and then I could sew and I could make a pattern. And what ended up happening, we ended up realizing that we had so much in common. I really think that Selena was caught off guard with me because, as a fashion designer, I have an air of femininity to me. And she was around the machismo Mexicano music industry people. And then she meets this guy who is, a fashion guy. I used to walk around with like, it was ridiculous. I'd walk around with like 6 Vogue magazines from all over the world. And I was always like, what's gonna, what, Isaac Mizrahi was big, Armani, Lagerfeld had just taken over Chanel. I mean, I was an idiot savant when it came to fashion, but I couldn't count from 1 to 4. But this is my focus. And I think and we were both married at the same time, a month apart. We were heading into our 1 year. And I think she found someone that she could be real with, because what ends up happening, as you guys will, I know now, you either figure out, are you going to be genuine when you meet people? When you acquire celebrity and you end up having to put another face when you go out. And that's where Selena was in her celebrity. She was, she constantly had to be made up. What people don't understand, and I think what Caucasians don't understand at the time, was that, well, she's not big in the United States, but South America is 5 times bigger. You have Cuba, Colombia, Peru. So she was massive.
Right.
And then I come into the picture, and I don't want to call her back. And I think that's what sparked the relationship.
And let me kind of set the time frame to, or remind people. I mean, they meet in June of 93. She's killed in March of 95. Yeah. It's a very short time. A lot of stuff happened.
Lots.
Some of the meetings happened at Olive Garden. Oh, that cracked me up. But
and the girl could eat.
But explain how the collaboration worked, because she really, not only was she passionate, she had good ideas, right? I mean, it's not like this, she was going to let everybody else do her fashion, right? Can you kind of maybe give us a sense of how the collaboration
What ended up happening is she ended up, that day, she wanted to meet for lunch, and I said, I can't go to lunch. Where she was used to everybody wanting to go with her, I was like, no, girl, I can't meet you at lunch, I'm working. And then she said, I break at 2, and she goes, I'll be back at 2. And sure enough, at 2 o'clock, she was back. And back then, I was an executive trainee. They didn't have designers back then. Back then, they were finance people that were in, they were from SMU. They were from, I graduated from a local design school in San Antonio, Texas. So I was very fortunate that Dillard's had accepted me into this executive, prestigious program. And so I was really focused. So what ended up happening, we exchanged numbers. You have to think about, this girl gave me her number in the back of a napkin. And then she says, you got to call me. I'm really interested in doing this. And from that day on, we went to my office, which really wasn't an office. It was a closet with a table. and I had to bring 2 chairs. And we sat there, and we just talked fashion. And then the phone call started, and then she started picking me up for lunch, and we would ride around, and we'd eat at Long John Silver's or Pizza Hut or whatever, and then we would just start talking about her dream of creating a fashion line. And so I learned really fast from her that she, instead of me being impressed by her, she was impressed by me. And that felt really good. Because no one, I graduated from design school in May. This is now June. I think it's like June the 14th or something. We had just moved. So I learned really fast that she was going to listen, because she listened. So what ended up happening is I told her no. I basically agreed that I would help her. Weeks later, I ended up meeting her at Q Productions, which really wasn't. It was like a garage. They were starting to build it, and we started working with one another because I wanted to help her. And she says, will you design something for me? And I said, Yeah, why not? So I designed something for her. I had it made, and I gave it to her, and she wore it. And then she would call me and she says, oh, I have an idea. And most of the time, she didn't even know where she was calling me from because she was that busy. Like they would take off on Big Bertha on Friday, and then they would have like 6 or 7 concerts, and then she'd come back on Tuesday or Wednesday, and then she called me. Well, then the calls started a lot. And then she would say, look, I have an idea for this, and I have an idea for that. Her ideas were incredible. The one thing that was so impressive about this girl is that and I didn't realize how impressive it was until later when I became this. I held some of the biggest jobs for some of the biggest retail conglomerates, and I became Dillard's first fashion designer. But I realized that having a point of view, and I have this conversation with my daughter all the time, who's in design school in Paris, France, that if you want to go into design, you have to have a point of view. And it's hard because everything has been done. And back in '93, you have to put the perspective of what was happening. What was happening, back in '93, the people that we know now, like Tommy Hilfiger or, Armani or Gucci, none of that stuff was around. So when I look back and I think of what her point of view was, it's crazy that she had such a clear point of view on what she wanted her garments to be. So most of the time, the collaboration was she'd call me. I always wrote it down, and then I would illustrate it. I had the power to illustrate what was in her brain, and then I would show her. Mm-hmm. And then she'd be like, oh yeah, but let's do this. And then I would easily fix it and create another one. And then, or I would tell her, no, that's not gonna work, let's do this. And then she'd be like, oh yeah, that's better. And that's how it started. Because I met her in June. By the end of June, I had already made her first bustier. But I didn't want to work with her. I made it very, very clear. I'm not going to work with you. I'm going to be the designer for Dillard's. But she never.
Come on, man.
She never doubted me. Like she never. Come on, think. You got to think about this. It's 1993. The designers were in the other side of the world, or in New York. Dillard's did not have a fashion designer. They had buyers. And they were in Little Rock, Arkansas. I didn't even know that they were in Little Rock. I knew then because I was in executive training. And it wasn't even, when I left Dillard's, I had built them to $8 billion. When I started with Dillard's, they were barely about 900 million. I know the number's huge. But, so there wasn't designers. And Selena had this audacious idea that she was going to be a designer and she was going to have a store. And she was going to have, in the store, she was going to have shoes, and she was going to have perfume, and she was going to have, and later she'd have kids' clothes, and it was going to be a salon so that people could do their nails and then go and buy. And I was like, really? That's so cool. You know what I mean? And I'm listening to her.
Yeah.
So the ideas were hers. A lot of the ideas are mine because later on, through our path, she got a Grammy. She was busy. I mean, I started doing a lot of stuff on my own because, the phone calls, like we would, I'd call and she'd come to a stack of designs and she'd go, oh, I like that one, but let's do this. I like that one. It happened so fast.
But let me ask you, it's a very short time frame that very intense. The relationship sounds intense. But, so you have a friendship, a working relationship that started.
The friendship happened fast.
Right. But what does her father, Abraham Quintanilla, think of it? What does Suzette, the band? I mean, it seems to me, anyone kind of suspicious?
No one knew anything about me. They didn't even, I didn't meet Abraham until that December, right? So it was June. We worked with each other. No one even knew I existed. Like I would go, like no one even knew I existed. Like,
but was she trying to keep you a secret or what?
No. I think what it was is I wasn't going to work for her. I was going to design for Dillard's. I was in executive training. I was, and at the time, I literally was the only Mexican. So I just felt lucky to be there. Before me, it was all like white people that went to SMU and went to Alabama State and went to,
I hope Dillard's has your photo on a wall somewhere.
It's funny. They became family. I love them. They're really dear friends of mine. But the weirdest thing is when I look back at what we did in because we built a factory. I built a factory. I built it. I built the factory. I went out and bought the equipment. Try hiring costureras. Try hiring seamstresses in Corpus Christi. Plus, they were all from Mexico and I couldn't speak Spanish. So I'd be like this and like that, so I learned how to speak Spanish. And Selena would there's a part of the book where she tells me, "You need to learn how to speak Spanish," and I'm like, "Yeah, I kind of need to, But yeah, so we kind of worked with one another from June till finally, and it was really enduring because, I'd go to Q Productions. Abraham found out about me through her back in I think it was probably October of '93. And she kept on telling me, "I told my dad about you, and my dad wants to meet you." And at the time, Abraham was working with the group called the Barrio Boys. And he was trying to figure out how he could bring some dancers into the Dinos. So there was a lot of things happening. A.B. was just writing The Amor Prohibido. So you have to remember, it's June. They had just produced the Selena Live.
Right.
And it's funny because I get credit for what she wears in the Selena Live, but all I told her is I like the jacket. And I get credit for it, but that's not me.
And how quickly were the sketches happening? Because I think one of the sketches that we have on display for the first time ever, right, the original, is an early sketch that you made for her that ultimately would be the outfit that she's buried in, not its intent. Can you talk about?
Yeah, so after this meeting, after she came into the store, she told me, you got to come. She says, "I have a design studio." And she goes, "You got to come see it." And I go, and I remember it was either a Wednesday or a Thursday. And she was going to take off the next day. And she says, "I'm going to be back on Monday." And I'm never back on Monday. And she goes, "Can you come?" And I said, "Oh, yeah, I could come." So I called in. And I just remember I wanted to go. Something captivated me about her. I can't tell you what. She just captivated me. I mean, her presence, her honesty, her sweetness, and the fact that she was seeing me, because no one had ever seen me. When you're a creative kid, Mexicano, you're bullied, man, big time. So the audaciousness that I wanted to be a fashion designer, it was laughable. It was laughable. So when I would, when I would do things, people would laugh. But Selena didn't laugh. She was like, wow. Oh, dude, and we're going to do this and we're going to do that. I constantly had to remind her, but I don't want to work with you. And it was because I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Selena was very gentle. And she goes, yeah, I get it. But you know what? We're just going to work with each other right now. I get it, And it took her like 4 months. And then finally, I just remember, when I decided to work with her, we didn't sign a contract for another 6 months. We didn't, what contract, what the heck is that? And I just remember when I called her to tell her that I had agreed to work with her, it's the day that she had found out she was nominated for a Grammy. And she's yelling and she's screaming because I'm going to work with her. And then she goes, "Oh, hey, I also got nominated for a Grammy." And I'm like, what? So she's screaming that I'm going to work with her, and she got nominated for a Grammy. And I'm like, girl, you got nominated for a Grammy. Right. So that tells you everything about her. But I think what was very sweet as well, in those first couple of months is we hung out a lot. Like I was in that red Porsche all over the place. I just remember when I figured out that she was famous. When people would follow us and blast her music, and we'd be in this Porsche, and she kind of was the only person who had a Porsche, a red Porsche, that Carrera, and I just remember, like, I remember when she first put I can't remember if it was I think the car had a cassette player. I think. I don't know if, because it's too early. No, there was DVDs, but I think for some reason I'm thinking it's I don't remember. And I remember when I first heard her sing, I heard her sing in her car. And I just remember like, girl, you can sing. And she looked at me, and because I was so disattached to Selena the singer.
Can you tell us about this outfit?
Oh, God.
Because I wanted to say,
that's one of my favorite pictures.
Al Rendon in the house, but
Al
also,
Rendon.
one of the things Al worked with Selena very early on and documents her evolution, because I mean she went through her little Janet Jackson Rhythm Nation phase, kind of a little funky, and then she's kind of changing her looks. But then there is a point when you start seeing through the eyes through the photos. There's a confidence that's coming.
Yeah.
There's the artist is forming. It's there.
We had a lot of conversation because I'll be really honest with you. I didn't kind of like what she was wearing before, and I told her that. And you see the difference when I come into the picture. No, you really do. And I'm not. You do. And you see, it became almost. It was her idea to do costume, like the flamenco. But I kept on. Like, remember, I first met her wearing a bodysuit. So that always stuck with me. So I created these overskirts and these overdresses, but this was such a fast thing. We had done this cat suit. It wasn't even finished. And I told her, I said, I kind of think you should wear a bodysuit. And she goes, oh, I don't. They all called their father Abraham. She goes, oh, I don't know that Abraham will let me. And I said, girl, but you look so nice. It's so sophisticated. Selena never looked bad. She never looked like scandalous or slutty. She always looked like, I hate the word demure because it's overused now, but she looked so demure, always. And so anyway, those cuffs were the sleeves of Freddie Correa's jacket. I used to think it was Chris, but it wasn't, because we took the sleeves off of Freddie Correa's. And I just remember telling her, you need cuffs. And Selena loved the 60s and the 70s, the disco era. So basically we put these cuffs on her, and she had a bag of shoes. And Selena, everything was in a bag, even like her money, in a book bag. Because after they did concerts, they got paid in cash. And like one time she gave me a book bag. She said, you would go to the bank with me? Will you go to the bank for me? I said, yeah. We all knew each other, we kind of owned Corpus. And then she gave me a book bag, and I opened it up, and I'm like, how much money is this? She goes, just hand it over, they'll figure. So I would walk into the bank with money. And so anyway, that's that. And I bought hair pieces in New York, And I remember, she had started wearing hair pieces already, but I remember seeing, every costume is either attached to like an old Mexican movie star, because when I was little, like we couldn't afford to go to the movies, but we could, back in San Antonio, there was a theater called, what was the name of that? The Alameda. And my mother would take me to the Alameda, and you have to take a bus back then. And it would take like an hour to get downtown. And I grew up with like Maria Victoria and Flor Silvestre, La Donna, and I always used to see Selena as the famous Hollywood, the famous Mexican star, like, Maria Felix. And so when I started looking at her hair, this reminded me of Maria Felix. And she would just put things on. One thing Selena did, she did her own makeup. And a lot of times I'd pull her hair back, I would do her hair. And so a lot of it just happened organically where we would play. And I think I unalarmed her because of my femininity. You know what I mean? And because I was just this free guy who just, plus I walked around like something out of Bananarama. I wore these, I had earrings and I wore combat boots and I was ridiculous. And I wore these overalls and I cut them into shorts. And I wore a t-shirt or I didn't wear a t-shirt. And then I would wear a jacket over. And then I had these cutting shears as a necklace. So why wouldn't someone think I was gay? You know what I mean? And, I don't know. So it was, and I disalarmed her with,
But did she understand this approach, this how you're working sort of this old Hollywood cultura? Was she in on that?
We would talk about it.
Okay.
So back to, I tend to ramble.
No.
So back to the first two outfits. So she tells me to meet her at Q Productions. And back then, I used to drive this convertible. It was like a BMW, but you would roll the top back. And I remember so excited because I'd never seen a studio. I'd never seen a recording studio. So I remember driving over, and I'm like, where the hell is this? And I remember, in my head, I go, this is where 18-wheelers go to die. Because they were just a bunch of old 18-wheelers. And then I remember driving. I remember we didn't have, like, phones. And so you literally had to look for the number. And I remember going up and down Leopard. And I'm like, I'm thinking, a studio. And it's just a big old garage. And I finally get there, and I'm like, I get to the middle door. And I see the bus, Big Bertha, and I'm just like, I'm just gonna get into this door. And I walked in comes Selena, and she was, again, all dolled up because she was doing press. And then she was showing me her studio, which wasn't a studio. It was just like a bunch of 2x4s. It was a little folded table, and she had a wall with a bunch of like appliques, a lot of beaded appliques, fabric remnants in the corner, but nothing like a studio. And I'm just like, there ain't no studio. and in my head, but I didn't want to hurt her feelings. Remember, I'd only met her. And then she took me upstairs, and they had finished upstairs, and it was almost kind of like her design studio, like where she would practice. Mm-hmm. There was glasses on wall, there was all glass on one wall. And that's where, later I found out that's where she didn't practice, but if she was gonna do a performance, she had key moves, and that's where she would practice. So we went upstairs because I told her I had a portfolio when we were talking in that little closet, and she was like, you have a portfolio? I go, yeah. And so I brought my portfolio, and we sat on the floor, and we looked at my portfolio, and Selena was like a kid in a candy store. She's like, oh my God. And she goes, who did all this stuff? And I go, me. And I basically said, you sketch? Yeah, and I sew. And she was like, wow, and wow. And she goes, you went to school for this? And then in the back, as she moved, a sketch pad fell. And I had it was like a little case that I had all my pencils and erasers. And she said, can you sketch something for me? So I sketched. I said, well, why don't you tell me what you want? And I start sketching for her, and she goes, yeah, I want something like bell bottoms. And she said, I want like something that's a bareback. And I go, a halter? And I remember telling her, yeah, this is like Halston. And she goes, yeah, who's Halston? You know what I mean? So we started almost kind of like teacher, student. And then, I said garment, and first she said clothes, and I said garment, she was garment. So she was so smart. And then she says, you do something for me. And that's when I designed that outfit. And it was supposed to be, I wanted it to be black leather and black, and it's weird those sketches stayed in my portfolio. And I made a copy for her, and those never got done. And it's really weird because when I left, she had told me like 2 weeks before I left, she says, I think I want to do the bell bottom. So I had started draping the bodysuit, and that didn't get done until after. And it's really funny because she called me on the phone, and we finished. She called me on the phone 2 days before Houston, And she goes, you got to go. And I said, girl, I'm already working at Dillard's because I had left. And she goes, come on, you got to go. We made it. You have to see it. And we were talking, and it's weird because she had broken her nail. So for me, a lot of things that you guys see because of the movie, it's such a personal thing for me. I see the human. I see this girl that I loved. And it brings a lot of emotion because I don't see the concert. I see the nail. Do you know what I mean? And it brings me to tears. So it's hard. You know, I've lived 30 years with that. And yeah, so all that is so special. The fact that I started talking about, I'm in therapy, yeah, and that's what I really am in therapy, and that's kind of what started me being able to do it, being able to talk about it, because all those every memory is just exciting, fun, but ultimately it's painful,
Right.
You know.
Because then at some point, though, it becomes a business. It becomes a dream, the stores, the pressure, the father, and then things get dark, too, right?
Yeah. Well, what ended up happening is you realize, you know, one thing about Mexicans, they're going to get it done. That's why it pisses me off with everything happening. We get it done. White people get it done too. Don't get me wrong. But us, you know, you put pedal to the metal. It's grease and it's blood, sweat, and tears, and you know. It started with the relationship, and then it started with the partnership, but then it started with, it's my dream too. You know, the fact that she had my name on the label, and that's all Selena. Right. Selena, no one would ever do that now. I remember we're at our favorite place to meet was Olive Garden, and you know, a lot of our meetings were at Olive Garden, and she hit me with, I want your name on the label. That was one of the reasons that I said, I'm going to work with her, because I knew that she was a different type of human. You know, you know, it's weird because when you're, not that I don't want to put on that I was, you know, battered and beat, even though I was battered and beat sometimes. But it wasn't, you know, when you go through that kind of trial and tribulations, that's why I'm really pro creatives, because they hit a certain place for me. You know, people that have been bullied and hurt and yelled at and called names, it changes your psyche. It really does. It changes your inner soul. You know, and then you have this light girl, this girl who's just light and just wants to love on you and tell you, like she was always telling me, God, you're so good. She was always, you know, it was always a hug. That changes everything. And it's different than a wife, and it's different than a friend. It's different. I'm sorry, it's different than a relative. It's kind of a
affirmation of your talents.
of a person that is now, I know, is famous and is beloved.
Right.
And it changed everything. And all of a sudden, boom. I mean, she was already starting. She had bought the store on Everhart, and it was just a house at the time. And she would have me meet her there, and she would tell me what she was going to do. And I was always impressed that she was very concise of what she wanted to do with the space. And then I said, oh my God, I'll help you with that. So it was weird because Selena was like my weekend job and my nighttime job. No, at the time it was weird because I was a trainee. I would get to work at like 4 a.m. Because when you're an executive trainee, you do everything. You know, when she met me, I was doing merchandising. And then by the time I started working with her, I was put at the dock. And I would have to get there at like 3:30 in the morning, and I would work until 2. So after 2, I was free to go work with her. And I started like listening to her, and then I would collaborate. I'm like, no, you got to do this. And she'd say, what about this? I'm like, oh, that's great, but we got to do this. And that's how the relationship started.
Let me ask you a couple more things, but I'm sure we wanted to have some Q&A. I'm sure people have questions, so I want to leave time for that. But, you know, if you could talk on 2 different topics. One, the point of the exhibit. Why does she endure? What is it that, based on the person that you knew, that goes even beyond that relationship, why she endures? And then also about why you ultimately had to leave that universe, which is you almost were seeing, you know, getting a premonition.
It was insane.
Yeah, so I think the audience would like to hear a little bit of both.
I think that Selena's always added light. I can't explain it. It's light. And it's first of all, it's incredible to see someone that is you in the mirror, same color of skin, comes from where you come from, that gives you almost the permission to dream that you could do that. That changes the game for people. You know, now my life is, if you really know me, you know that for me, I work with creatives. I don't care what time it is. I mentor kids. And that was who Selena was. And I think that Selena changes the game for us. And now it's become holistic. It's not just become people of color, it's become everyone in every country. You know, we lived in Asia, and we had a person who lived with us who was our maid, if you will. And, you know, all the maids, she was Filipino, and they all knew who Selena was. We didn't even know that. They would all come and look at the pictures while we were gone. But you realize that when you see Selena, it almost gives you the permission to dream that she did it, I can do it. I think that happens when people meet me, you know, because it's hard when you are born to an inheritance of nothing. And when someone gives you the permission to dream bigger than the inheritance of your color, your name, your circumstances, and where you live. And in America, especially now, it's difficult. And I think that when you look at Selena, when you look at not just the legacy, not just the idol, the person, the human, the joy that comes from that. And the fact that her music is timeless. Her fashion is timeless. And that, I think, is what the Selena effect is.
So, okay, and my last question, then I'm going to turn it over to the audience. But you left that beautiful bubble. There was a reason. Can you give us a sense of why? I mean, something you couldn't stay in that beautiful world. What was going on?
You know, they hired this woman to help me. It got so big. I think about this. I built the factory there at Q Productions, and it was a factory. I hired the people, I trained them, then I would design the collection, and then I would design what she wore. In collaboration with her. But I was doing it. I was fitting it on her. I'd make the first pattern. And then I'd go to New York, Miami, LA, and then the bills started coming. And then the insurance bills started coming. And I didn't realize then, I didn't realize I was smart until I started working at Dillard's. I was creative. And I didn't realize I was good at numbers. I'm a dyslexic. Back then, when someone tells you you can't do something, you're like, oh, I'm good at this. Because I hate the word, when people say you're creative, to me it was like a stab in the heart. Because I wanted to be smart. And when things got so out of hand, bills were coming in, and I had to help these people. And I had started making appearances with her. And then she wanted me to go on Big Bertha so that we could work closer to. And then I just said, we need an accountant, Selena. We need an accountant. We need someone to manage the bills, And at the time, I was creating an ad for an accountant, someone that was a CPA that understood that. And, the way it happened was they hired this woman, and I met her at a concert. She came into the bus. And Selena didn't tell me, Abraham told me.
But you found yourself being pushed out by her.
Well, what ended up happening is it started fast. The manipulation, the brain, I remember I wasn't part of the Insular Group. I was too busy. This woman was part of the Insular Group. She had known them forever. I didn't know anything about this woman.
And you were scared when she brought you food that it might be poisoned?
What ended up happening, she started, and can I use a curse word?
Yeah.
She started fucking with my brain. And it would be like, she'd do stuff, and then she would be like, oh, but I'm not gonna tell anybody. Or it started at a party. I ended up going to Suzette's house. First time I ever met her. I go to Suzette's house. She had just built a house. There wasn't even water in the pool. And I was so excited because I was going to be part of I was going to be part of the group. Well, of course, what do you do when you're nervous? Drink. And I drank a lot. And all of a sudden, Selena shows up with Yolanda. And Yolanda was always mijo this, mijo that, which is like my son. And she'd be, you work too hard. You need to take breaks. And I'm bringing you some food. And I was like, okay, someone's thinking about me, right? And what ended up happening, that night, I left. I shouldn't drive, but I was drunk and I drove. And what I didn't realize is that Suzette had planted all new shrubs. I ran over all the damn things. Like I ran them over. And then I get home and I get a phone call and it's Suzette. But she's not mad. She's more concerned that did you get home okay? And I go, I'm so sorry. She was laughing. She goes, you drove over my shrubs. And I go, I did? And she goes, it's okay. She was laughing. But she wasn't mad at me. And then Yolanda came in and she goes, oh my God, she was so mad. And she called Selena and, you're making a fool of yourself. And that started it. And then it got worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then she tried to limit my time with Selena.
Right.
And it was like, she'd cancel her appointments. She goes, you got to go through me. And I'd call Selena and I go, do I have to go through you? She goes, no, who told you that? So I was getting it from both ends. Yeah. And then finally, what ended up happening, things started getting really, 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 really scary. Like really scary. I just so happened to have, I call her my wife, but at the time she was my wife. And she had a practice. She was a psychologist. And I'd call her and she goes, that doesn't sound right. She sounds unstable. And so I started realizing that there was some instability there.
Yeah.
And, biggest regret, I wish I would have not left. I think things would have been different. So I live with that. I live with that guilt. Like I've lived with it for years.
Let's open it up to questions. I think we have microphones. Do we, Michael, for that? Or how are we going to do the Q&A? Or should we? Or I can give up mine? Or what do you think? I could be the person. Hold on. I'm going to do Phil Donahue impression right here and be the microphone guy. But in reading that diary, it's really scary.
Oh, it's really scary.
When one of his workers went to her apartment and they found a shrine to Selena, it was really crazy.
I think I wrote in one of them. What's so funny is I wrote everything down, and I remember in one of the diaries I wrote, "I'm really scared. I think she's going to hurt me." Yeah, it was really spooky. You guys, it was like a horror story, and it was weird because we'd have incredible, like the fashion shows were huge, beautiful, and then she'd start messing with me, and then I'd be like scared. And it didn't help that I had all Mexican costureras who'd be like, she's gonna place this. I didn't know what brujeria was, and she'd be like, don't eat anything. She's gonna place she's gonna place a spell on you. So I would be like, so I was getting it from all directions, and I just remember this chick is gonna, she's gonna make me, and she'd follow me. It was just, it's all in the book.
Let's hear this.
Go ahead.
I was so involved in that. I just was like, I didn't want to even ask questions. I was like, keep going. It's the inside scoop. We're all like, what's the saying my friends and I have? FTBY?
I'm 61.
I don't want to say
I can
all those
barely
words,
text.
but there are some nice words about somebody.
Okay.
We weren't thinking it? Okay. Anyway, I have a question. I visited the Whitliff. I saw your drawing of her burial outfit. I'm very interested in it because...
Of her what?
Her burial outfit, because that's not what it was
Let's not
designed.
call it that.
I'm sorry, I don't remember what exactly it was designed for.
Let's call it the purple, the periwinkle.
What exactly was it designed for?
So at the time, I just designed it. It was one of the first designs I did when I first met her. Mm-hmm. And she ended up, to be really honest with you, I didn't even know they had made it until there was a private burial that evening that we only family went, and my wife and I. And as I got close to the casket, she was wearing it.
Yeah, I was interested in like, one, like what you guys, how y'all collaborated to create the outfit, and also what your thoughts were when you found out she was laid to rest in one of your designs. If you're okay with answering
No,
that.
sure, absolutely. The collaboration was, we would talk about it, and Selena had a lot of ideas. I had the ability to sketch. So a lot of times it was creating the image, and I figured out really fast that I could show Selena one sketch, and then once we had a grouping of sketches, I would create the entire grouping, like the one you saw upstairs, and she would see the entire collection in color. And then she would love it, or she didn't. And it's funny because with her, it was always just a check mark if she liked it. So I have hundreds and hundreds of sketches. And some of them have sketch marks and some of them have big X's. And that kind of was the collaboration. And it was always a phone call. We always met on Tuesday. And that was our work day, every Tuesday. It was very different with their costumes. With their costumes, it was a lot of conversation of where she wanted to go. And it turned into, she wanted to wear, it started with Cher. And I remember telling her, Cher would create these images, and she goes, oh, I want to do that. And that's how it started with her wanting to do costumes like the flamenco. And then it started with color. I want to do color. And then, so the last time I worked with her, we were creating almost volumes of just color. So if you see all the big color, like solid colors, and that's what it was. We started thinking of how her image would change in a costume. That's why she always had skirts that she could take off. And so we started thinking of performances. And for Selena, she wanted a costume. And she didn't have time to change. And you have to remember, if you know Selena, she always twirled. And I wanted her in skirts. Selena didn't like her in skirts. Selena didn't like her calves. She had very muscular calves. And I'm like, she looked beautiful in skirts. So I remember telling her, I begged her to put skirts on. My plan was to put her in gowns later. And so a lot of it, she listened, I listened to her. It was weird. It was like two good friends working. We had so much fun. Like, we would end up giggling, laughing, dancing. There's a memory where we were dancing the hustle. And we would, we would just have fun, before everything went south.
I think if I could just get, do you want to provide any information about what you felt when you saw that she was laid to rest?
So, I didn't find out until I walked up to the casket. And as you can imagine, it was horrific. The entire experience, from the moment we heard. I was in McAllen at the time. I was working at the Dillard's store in McAllen and working within the stores because Dillard's was planning to go into Mexico at the time with Walmart. And so my HUD was in the McAllen store. It's the biggest mall in Texas, the McAllen. And Selena had called me like a week before. She had just done Padrísimo. And she was so excited because she had done it all in Spanish. And she had called me to see if I would do something for her again. And she said, hey, guess what? I'm going to do the bell bottom. And meaning I'm going to wear the bell bottom. But I never knew that they had started working on the Chanel, I called it the Chanel, the quilted jacket. Our head seamstress, Maria Perez, was outstanding, who's in her late 80s and ill now. But if it wasn't for Maria Perez, who was just an incredible seamstress, she'd do our first samples. It would have never got done. So what ended up happening is, as I walked in, you're still a zombie. You still can't imagine that this could possibly happen. Do you know what I mean? And so as I walked in, I noticed. I didn't even know that she had worn it to the Tejano Music Awards until like a month later when they started putting, when Johnny Canales put it on television. It was all over television. I remember thinking, you got your way. Because I wanted it to be black and she did it in periwinkle. So I remember, you got your way. Because we had a big discussion about it. You know, it should be purple. I go, it should be black. Yeah, so I think, it was a...
Not for Lavina, no.
It was it was sad, you know? It's weird to be proud about something like that. Do you know?
Well, thank you so much for
Sure,
answering
sure.
that. And also, thanks for coming.
Sure, thank
So
you.
nice to
Thank
talk
you
to
for
you.
coming, you too.
I really wanted to.
What is your name?
I'm Lene. Nice
Good
to talk
meet you.
to you.
Good to meet you, Lynette.
Hi, my name's Natalie, and I am here with a couple of other library ladies. And of course, our big concern is, when is your book coming out?
Already. People are like, when is his book coming out already? So to be really honest with you, we decided that, and a lot of it started with a conversation I had with Hector on the road, going back after coming and touring, you know, the Whitliff. I wanted to end it on a positive note on what happened, what's going on what happened from 2019 to now. So my editor and one of my coach, she's lives in Ireland, and we meet. Our meetings are every Thursday, and I was struggling. You know, last year I had agreed to do a documentary. I'm gonna be really honest with you. I was drinking a lot, I was smoking a lot of weed. And because coming back to Texas after 30 years, everybody was recognizing me. Like it was crazy. The only thing that changed, I was gray-haired. And at first I was like, I've done all this in my career. I manage all these big companies, and all of a sudden I'm Selena's designer again. You know what I mean? It was kind of like, it was a mine. And I agreed to do this documentary, and they started filming me. And I had been back to Corpus, and I went to Corpus, and in the whole process going back to Corpus, I kind of had a nervous breakdown at a restaurant where I lost it, and they had to close down the restaurant. And we decided that I had to get some help. I did. And I decided I don't want to film myself anymore. And I don't want to write this book. And I don't want to think about Selena. And I wish I would have never met her. And it was just too painful. So we decided that we were going to put a halt to it. They talked to my ex-wife, and they said, he really needs some help. And so I decided that I was going to get help, and I was going to think about this book. So we took a break. Therapy really works. I got sober for 6 months. Just I wanted to prove that I was an alcoholic, because alcoholism runs in my family. And I said, I may come out of this without ever getting this book done. And that's why it's taken so long. It's also taking so long because I'm writing it. I don't have a ghost. I'm actually, literally, these are my words. I'm typing this out. I've had great help. Joe Nick. I've had, Lindsay Spence is one of the most prominent European writers. She writes, if you guys saw the Maria movie with Angelina Jolie, that is an excerpt of her book. She called me and wanted to help me. And she said, let's take a break. So we started up in September, and we said, we need to end this in a positive note. And then we moved things around to make it we know it's sad, and it's hard, because coming back here, there wasn't, like, I would get in my car to run, and the Selena song would come on. I hadn't listened to Selena music for over 30 years. Couldn't do it. And then I come back, and it's everywhere. I just didn't think I was going to make it. So that's why. And I need a publisher. Go ahead.
Hi. So I had talked to Hector about this when we talked this past week, but I've just noticed, I mean, I wasn't there when Selena was alive, but I've noticed there's such a strong resurgence of just Selena everything. So how was it to go from knowing her, well, knowing that you didn't know she was famous when you met her. How is it to go from that to like see this whole group of people
Joy.
just love Selena?
Joy.
Yeah.
You know, it's so funny. It's incredible to be part of such an incredible legacy. And now I feel that it's the proudest thing I've ever done. Do you know what I mean? I went from really looking at it from a tragedy to something different, you know? And it's I'm so proud of it. Like, I'm so beyond proud of it. So yeah, it's pure joy. And I love that, you know, for years, you know, everything that I talked about on that floor at Q Productions that I was gonna do, I did, every single thing. And every single thing would cause me such misery because she didn't get to do it. Even the birth of my children, because I didn't want to have kids. Selena wanted to have kids. And the fact that she didn't get to do any of that, but I turned it around. And now it's like, she would be freaking out that this is happening. So it's utter joy now. And it's not as easy as turning off a switch. I've gotten help. So I'm seeing it differently, you know? And it's such a cool thing when kids stop me all the time. You know, I have a recognizable face. But I think also people think they see a ghost because I'm gray now. And someone on the internet said, oh my God, he's gotten old. And in my head, I'm like, bitch, it's been fucking 30 years. People see, Selena will always be young, you know? So, excuse the auditors, I'm so sorry.
Hi, Martin. My
Hi.
name is Manuel.
I love your
Thank
style.
you. Thank you.
I wish I could wear a cowboy hat. I like hats,
Thank
but
you.
I can't wear a cowboy hat.
Thank you. So my question is, I don't know if it's too personal. You don't have to answer.
Nothing's
if
too personal. I'm in therapy.
Okay. So I'm a big believer in chance encounters and how one little event can
Me too.
change your life like crazy. So that chance encounter with Selena, do you think that your pain comes from, because I've seen interviews before where you feel pain or you feel kind of like guilty? Does that event right there, does that stem your pain for thinking like, if I would have never approached her, she would have never like pursued her boutiques and stuff like that?
I think where that comes from for me is the fact that I should have yelled louder.
Okay.
Because I went to Abraham many, many times, but I should have been more persistent. I should have shaken her. I should have told her. That's where that comes from.
Gotcha.
But destiny happens.
Yeah.
Life happens. So a lot of times you have to remember, you have to take the good and the bad. And for me, for someone that has lived my life, and it's crazy, my life. Like, I mean, and I always tell kids, I lived in a trailer. I've lived in a penthouse. I've lived in a freaking huge estate. I've been around the block. But I tell you something, the one thing that doesn't change, I have to eat, and I have to pee, and I have to sleep. We're all the same.
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, a lot of times, I've come to a realization that things happen the way they're supposed to happen. I believe in a higher being. You can't change destiny, in my opinion. Good, bad, and indifferent.
Yeah.
So yeah, but yeah. I think a lot of it is that I should have yelled louder.
Gotcha. Well, I just wanted to like thank you, because when I look at you and Selena's story, I think that you brought so much joy to her life by letting her
Thank you.
live her dreams aside from music and her passion. Like, I just think,
Yeah.
want to thank you for bringing that.
Well, thank you. That's good. I love your scarves, by the way, Exiters.
Thank you so much for being here. I think I speak for myself and everyone that this is such a special night and a historic
Thank you.
night to hear your words from this figure that has played such an important part in all of our lives. And I was a child and remember exactly where I was in San Antonio in the moment that I learned that Selena passed away. So to be in your presence and hear you sharing your experiences with her is so beautiful and meaningful, and this is just a very special night.
Thank you.
I wanted to ask if you could talk a little bit about her last, what she wore during her last performance, that iconic purple sparkly bodysuit with the bell bottoms that we all know so well.
So that literally was the first thing I ever sketched for her. First thing. And it was kind of, we're sitting on the floor. And she says, she wanted me to sketch something for her. And I go, you tell me what you want me to sketch. So she's describing what she wants. That original sketch, no one's ever seen. And it didn't have the jacket. I didn't want the jacket. I found out about the jacket. So I left, and she calls me because she wants the jacket. She's at Maria Perez's house. And they're fitting her for it. And she grabs the phone. She's starting to realize what's going on. Things are crazy. She's starting to realize because Maria Perez is telling her. And she starts the conversation with, "I'm so sorry." And she starts crying a little bit. And I start crying. And she goes, "Oh my God, we got to talk about this jacket." And I'm like, "Why are you putting a jacket on it?" And she goes, "Well, they're bringing me in a horse." So I'm thinking she's going to ride a horse. I don't know it's a carriage, right? And she's like, "Are you and Becky coming?" And I go, "I can't. I'm really busy. I can't go." And she goes, "Come on, you got to come." And, we sold out, and it's all this stuff. And we just couldn't. I couldn't. I was in McAllen. And she's telling me, I'm going to need to take it off. But Selena wanted everything tight. Like, everything had to be perfect. And I said, "Well, you're going to have to put zippers, the invisible zippers." She goes, "But how am I going to unzip it when I'm..." And then she kept on going, "Ow." And I'm like, what are you doing?" She goes, "I broke my nail." The little thing. And so basically, Selena loved disco and loved that whole era. And that outfit is us talking about Cher. Some people say it was Diana Ross now. That it was Cher. And if you look at, come on, it's a complete dupe of Cher. When you see Cher inside. And so it really was a Cher dupe. Truth be told.
Thank you so much.
Hi, my name's
Hi.
Alyssa, and by the way, I love you. I don't know you, but I love you.
Thank you. I love you too.
But I have a couple questions if you don't mind. So the first one is, what would you tell your younger self about the journey you've gone through, and what are you most proud
Girl,
of?
you're way too young to be so deep.
But hold on, there's more. As a book person, because y'all mentioned books, but as a book person, I love to write about my feelings, and I wanted to know, about you. Has writing your book healed certain parts
Oh, yeah.
of you?
Big time. Big time. Although it's almost broken me. Like, literally, it really almost broke my family. Thank God we had a massive house, and I could go to the 4th floor and lock myself up for a couple of days. Yeah, it changed everything. But to your first question, go back to it, because I'm 61.
You're good. Hold on. What would you tell your younger self
Oh.
about the journey you've gone through, and what are you most proud of?
Dude, if you only knew what's going to happen. Like, seriously. Because when I tell you that I came from a freaking trailer, I took my daughter, my son, last year when she came, my daughter only comes maybe, if we're lucky, once a year. She comes for Christmas. And my daughter loves riding around the south side of San Antonio. She loves it. She loves us telling her about, us going when we were little, and, how we would walk everywhere. And I took her to where I grew up, and she started sobbing. And she goes, "But it looked better then." And I said, "No, it looks exactly the way it was when I was." It was a piece of shit trailer. Yeah, I mean, the fact that I did what I did is crazy, because there is nothing special about me. I can talk. And I love clothes. So when I see kids that are struggling, I'm like, I wish this woman is the one that's responsible for it, which is my wife. Because back then, the fact that I could have the nerve to be a fashion designer, no. So yeah, I would say, wait, the ride you're going to have, buddy. The ride you're going to, like, think about this, you guys. I've flown privately. I have gone to some of the best parties all over the world. I've met with some of the most incredible people. I have eaten at some of the best places in the world. I've been able to send my kids to the best schools in the world. Like, literally, my son graduated from Cornell. My daughter's at Parsons, Paris. I have been able to support myself. I've been able to support a family. I've been able to do things that I can't figure it out. Yeah, so yeah, I mean, you can do it too. I mean, it's crazy. It has been easy. I've given up a lot of stuff, and it's a lot of work, but it's crazy when you're young, because when you're young, things are bigger when you're young. Hurt is bigger, love is bigger, pain is bigger, and if you're a creative, and I use the word creative because creativity comes in many forms. It comes in so many forms. But I will tell you, when someone tells you you can't do something, we as humans, especially when it's the people that are supposed to love and support you, you kind of believe it. And what ends up happening to the cycle of success, words matter. And let me tell you, I'm guilty of saying some horrible things. But words matter. And if you walk into a room and someone doesn't smile and someone doesn't see joy, that changes everything for a human. Everything. So when I see kids that are struggling, or I see kids that have been battered, or I see kids that have been judged because of who they want to love, yeah, man, because it's not fair. So it just isn't.